Welcome to Deborah Marie Brain Plasticity Podcast.
Hey, it's Deborah Marie again. How y'all doing today? Well, have you ever thought about when you're taking your blood pressure and everything that your 2 feet need to be on the ground? I never thought about it, but I had to learn it. Have you ever thought about men, real men? They sit like this and stuff. I've never thought about it. Have you ever thought about ladies? We sit like this. I never thought about it. I just did things naturally, or else I sloped down and do a simple thing like that. And why am I talking about this? Well, I'm going to tell you about my trip to New Zealand, and you're going to learn just a tad about it. One thing is I had to stop. Oh, isn't this terrible when I tell you? I had to stop in Hawaii because I couldn't take the whole long trip. I had to stop there for a week and rest. If everybody else can go straight through, if they have any kind of, back in the day, any kind of energy and stuff, but because of my neural and my brain injury, I had to stop for a week in Hawaii. And so I had time to walk around the beach. So then I'd get back on the plane and I'd go to New Zealand. And why would I want to talk about New Zealand? Well, when I got to New Zealand, yes, they have different cultures there. They're all mixed in. It's not like you have to, there's a reservation here or there's this here and all of that. They're the only society I have ever been around, and I've been in quite a few other countries that is so mixed. And I found on their television program, it had every day at 5 o'clock, it had somewhere 4 or 5 o'clock, they had Maoris, and they talked about the Maori religion. And then the next hour, they talked about the Christian religion. And then the third was how each Christian and Maori worked together and how their beliefs work together and stuff like that. And I found that so fascinating because they were teaching people about how to coexist together. Okay, what does that have to do with brain plasticity? It stimulated and helped stimulate my brain. It got me out there and got me out the door to go talk to people. So I would search out and I'd go walking in these types of mall. They're not malls, but they were walkways in Wellington. And sure enough, I found a lady who was a Māori lady who had this store. And we got to talking, and she said, "You wouldn't never see this in the U.S." And I says, "What are you saying? Right here you went from an English store to this store, a person, and that store type of person. But in the U.S., you seem like you have separation." And she's talking about separation of indigenous people, not of color, but indigenous people, the people who were originally on the land. So I had many visits with her. So that is a brain stimulation thing. Also, what I did there, they had beautiful English gardens, and I'd go through the gardens and I would study the roses and I would study the different plants. And a lot of times I realized these were plants that we have right here in Kentucky. These are plants that we have in Georgia and other types of countries or states I've been in. Well, they are, and people don't think about this, they're a rainforest. They were a rainforest, just like that movie. No, just like that New Zealand movie. Due to my brain injury, I can't think of the name of it right now, but you're going to know it. It's the one where the woman got shipped off from England and she ended up in New Zealand and not liking her husband, and she ended up liking the Māori man, well, the English soldier that went Māori and stuff. And so it was very interesting there, seeing all of this. And then the the stores were so, due to it's an island, fresh, and they only had limited resources, and they wanted to stay within their resources. They didn't want countries coming in and just pumping food and all sorts of things. So they did a lot of organic, and they still do to this day, a lot of organic farming, because that helps them to have people employed. And it was the first place that I had found that there were still schools for learning seamstress. And the reason why, there's a lot of stores that people made their own clothes. These designers would go to college and they would learn how to sew, and they would have maybe a staff of a couple of people, and they would design clothes and then they would sell them. Why? They wanted to keep the market of their own people working. And that's what they did with all of their industries. It was quite interesting. That is what I miss today with us. Okay, so then I had to learn, that is brain plasticity, getting adjusted. And this, they had centimeters, they had all the metric system. I gotta tell you, I went to the grocery store and I bought some ham, and I just wasn't thinking, and this was product, brain plasticity. I had, as an engineer, I knew it really good, but I wasn't real good in these days. So I tell them how much ham I want. I had a ham this big and this long, and it was just already cooked, and it was something that you would have just had very thin and here, and you would tell them maybe a half a pound or something like that, or a quarter of a pound. But I had no clue with the metric system, but I thought I was telling them that. So I get home with it, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do with this? Across the street was a Catholic church that I went to, and so I ended up cutting off some for us, and I went across the street to the priest, and you just have no idea how the priests and the nuns all were so excited to have gotten that huge piece of ham that I bought, and laughed about the story. They thought it was so funny. Well, I did too. Almond didn't, but the price at that time for our dollar to their dollar was, was not the same. And then I came across a very cute cafe, and it's called Cafe Neo. So if you're ever in Wellington, go there. Still know the manager, and now he's grown up more and has 3 kids, and we communicate. But his restaurant is very good. But I helped him when I could with my engineering, and I made this little book, and I talked to him about business and stuff like that. And and I gotta tell you one little story with it. Eggs. He says, "Gosh, Deborah, eggs are going up." And I said, "Have you ever thought about going around to the chicken farms and seeing if you can get a competitive price?" He just looked at me, and he says, "We don't do that here, really." And I says, "Well, we do that in the USA." And next thing I know, he's going around, and he got a better price with the people that he was working with, because he was checking out other people's egg prices and stuff like that. So I helped him on a variety of things, just that things that we do that we take for granted. And that's a socialist country, and they. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that it is things that we don't think about, starting our own business, and how we have so many resources, and already the process in our heads of how to be entrepreneurs. In the U.S., we're very much thinking about that. Some other countries do, but they have limitations. They have regulations. He had regulations he had to pass. I was at, and I won't tell the story yet, in Canada, but I'm going to tell this real quick. In Canada, I saw a restaurant developing for a year and a half because of the regulations. A year and a half. Now, we're not talking about making a building. We are talking about just putting in a new kitchen, and that is it. And it took a year and a half. So that's a different another country about Canada that I'll tell you later. But back again with New Zealand, it's beautiful there. And if you ever get an opportunity, do go there. The New Zealand people are very wonderful. Oh, this is another thing I want to talk about. People have a tendency to copy a lot of the New Zealander indigenous people, their tattoos. Well, these people who do the indigenous dance and have the tattoos and the various things, it's a religious rite. They have to get to a certain level before they can do certain activities in those dances. They can't just walk up there and say, I want to be the guy who sticks out my tongue. I want to be the person who does this. I want to be the one that does it. I want this kind of trick. They can't. It's a religious rite. That's what I was taught by this woman and by this show. And I sit back, and a lot of times I think, in the U.S., wouldn't it be nice? We could do it all day long, but have every culture have an hour. We would have so many cultures, but would we learn something? Wouldn't we understand others a little bit better? I know I contacted PBS once and never got a return, but now that I have my podcast, I can say that to you. Wouldn't it be better if we could? I don't care if it is Italian, Mexican, Spanish, there's a difference, Cuban, white, Caucasian. Is it Caucasian? Or are those Caucasians Irish? I mean, there's different cultures within our society that we do these rituals with, religions that we do these rituals with and stuff. I think that would be so fascinating. I'm retired. You that aren't retired may think that's not a very interesting thing. But those couple of hours, 2.5 hours, maybe 3, that I used to watch periodically in New Zealand taught me so much about the country that made me want to go out and buy a book about how did it start. And I would just tell it that I'll end with that. And what it was, U.S., England lost. They went around, didn't find New Zealand at the time, went to Australia. They had wars with the Australians, with the Aboriginals there. They didn't understand them because Aboriginals are they're in today time. They can't think backwards, they can't think forward. They are in the now forever. You need to learn. It's very fascinating. And so then when they got to New Zealand and founded I don't remember if he was the captain or the officer, but when he came in, he was supposed to fight. And as he was fighting, he stopped. And he decided too many deaths, it's too small of an island, after he had gone through some of the area. And he says, let's work together. And so they made peace. So the bottom line here is, let's work together and let's make peace. God bless you. And thank you very much for joining me today about New Zealand, my experience.